There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. Well, I owe that little gem of Oscar Wilde to my listening too much to Monty Python when I was a student. But there's one thing even worse than not being talked about, and that's thinking you have nothing to say in the first place. So in this video, I'm going to set out exactly why what you have to say is exactly what somebody else needs to hear. And the weird thing is that while you're sitting there in the corner thinking you've got nothing particular to say, there are people out there who would pay hundreds, if not thousands, to learn from you, to hear what you have to say, and to gobble up your expertise. Thinking you have nothing to say is quite natural. I mean, I thought that for years, because your life is the life that you lead every day. You get up in the morning, you get ready, you go out, you do your job, you do whatever you do during the day. You do your stuff, you come home, you chill in front of the TV or whatever you want to do, you go to bed, and it all starts again. It's all very humdrum, very boring. But that's because you live it every day. Somebody else can have a completely different opinion. I bet even someone like Lewis Hamilton, who thinks nothing particularly of going at 200 miles an hour around a hairpin bend. I don't know about you, but you might think that's a little bit extraordinary. But it's his daily life. It's his job. So it's not a question of what you do or don't do. It's a question of perspective. Your brain is literally wired to think that your experiences are everyday and humdrum and boring, simply because you live them every day. If you flip that round, you look from somebody else's perspective. They could be doing exactly the opposite, because they could be just looking at your highlight reel. You look at other people and they think they're having fantastic, wonderful lives, but you're not with them when they have breakfast in the morning. You're not with them when, I don't know, they get a toothache. They get the kind of everyday things that we all get. You can't compare your everyday messy reality to someone else's seemingly perfect life, because they have a messy reality as well that they don't show. So from that point of view, they're exactly the same as you. You have interesting bits and you have boring bits. Hey, that's life. You've forgotten how long it took you to learn that stuff that you do automatically. You've forgotten the effort, the blood, sweat and tears that you put in to do the stuff that you think everybody else does. That simple skill you have, it's what somebody else is desperately trying to figure out. And that's the kind of thing that you can teach. And the really interesting bit is that all those embarrassing vulnerability moments that you might feel a little bit difficult talking about, they are just the learning moments that other people want to hear. They're raw, they're real, they're relatable. I have a friend who posted a few years ago now on LinkedIn, just a little post off the cuff about her chaotic morning trying to run a business and 2 kids, getting them to school at the same time, with a few cuss words, it must have been. 1,500 comments and £400,000 worth of business later, she was a happy girl. So those humdrum, frustrating moments are the kind of things that other people can relate to. This is all about being relatable. So, you may ask, how do you identify all those stories? Well, there's all kinds of ways. One way that Matthew Dix talks about in Storyworthy is basically writing them down every day. The little things that happen, not journaling, just in one sentence or two at the end of each day, write something down that could be just story-worthy. You never know. It may not be, but you never know. Once you've been doing that a certain time, you'll have a vault, a gold mine full of stories you can tell. But another way of going through past stories is more detailed. It takes longer to do, but it will be another gold mine of stories that you can come up with. Divide your life up into chunks, 5 years, let's say 5-6 years, depending on how old you are. You're going to have, obviously, the older you are, the more chunks you're going to have. I would include also the time when you were at school, because that's when you were in peak learning. For each of those times, write down what you were doing in that period in your life. What did you learn? What did you unlearn? Who were your mentors? Who were your teachers? Who were your enemies? It'll take time, like I say, because you remember when you left school, when you got your first job, when you got your first promotion, and things like that. But the beauty of it is the bits that fall in the middle. It's those little anecdotes. It's those little stories of change that other people will get inspiration from. Think about what gets you fired up. What could you sit and talk about for ages? What could you think at least, bore people with? What do you stand for? What are your non-negotiables? What are your principles? These aren't just beliefs, they're the backbone of your story. And this might be a little bit more difficult, but it's really worthwhile, believe you me. What do you feel vulnerable about? What are those things that you are slightly embarrassed, not ashamed? This is not about shaming people. Slightly embarrassed perhaps, but you think there could be a learning point for other people. Being embarrassed about something, having a failure, is in many ways far more connecting than a success, because people relate, strangely enough, more to failure than they do success. But the uncomfortable truths are connection gold. In a world of, I'm not quite sure what the word is, automation, in a homogenized world, increasingly homogenized world where we've all got to be perfect, your personal story really is a secret weapon. People don't buy products anymore, they buy connection. They're looking for values, they're looking for meaning. So the things that you think are ordinary, somebody else is going to think are absolutely mad, absolutely bonkers. When I spent many years in France, so I speak French pretty well, I have to say. And I think it's just average, there's some part of my head that thinks everybody can do this. So when I can just jump from one language to another, people look at me in a kind of a weird way. And I have to do a double take then, because I think, what's so weird about that? Well, it is, actually. Particularly in our world, which is a minority of the world actually, where people generally only speak one language. But your individual path, your individual story, your individual background is yours, and I really love you to own it. So if this video related to you, you can relate to it rather, I'd love you to come on this journey with me, because I'm just starting this journey. It was only, I got to the wrong side of 60 before I realised that I had something worth saying, and I'm just starting to build my story in public. If you go in the description, there's a free download of it's a workbook about how to build your story based on the timeline exercise. I'd love you to come along with me. So hit the subscribe, the like button, and all the LinkedIn stuff, and I will see you in the next video.